There's been all these super phenomenal games releasing on other platforms lately, but all it makes me want is our phenomenal game. It makes me want our phenomenal game all that much more, and if you play Switch, you know what that game is. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Our phenomenal game is obviously The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Hit that like button if you can't wait for it, and let me know what you want to see most in this game in the comments down below, because that's what we're talking about today. I've been playing Horizon, I've been playing Elden Ring, and it's just making me wonder, how wonderful can they make the sequel to Breath of the Wild? And what elements will they put in to really evolve this game? So I've come up with my wish list and I'm gonna give it to you. And then feel free to give me your wish list in the comments down below and we can chat about our phenomenal game that soon enough will come and raise the roof off the entire industry. So we're gonna kick it off right away with a big one. And I'm gonna start kind of controversial. I really want Breath of the Wild 2 to have a new villain. I know there's a lot of you that think Ganon is the guy, and he is the guy. But playing Skyward Sword last year on Switch made me kind of like a different twist. You know, Lord Girahim, he's got that tongue, he's kind of nifty. He's not the greatest villain of all time, but I think back to like Vati from Minish Cap and Four Swords, and I really like when Nintendo and Zelda decide to do something a bit adjacent. Now, I wouldn't be upset if Ganon was back, but I would like to see them go in a different direction and maybe bring in a new villain that is fleshed out, fun, and adds a whole new piece of lore to the franchise. You see, we have so many recurring characters, and that's great. This franchise is very heavily steeped in nostalgia, and so much lore that goes from game to game, but I think it would be cool to introduce new. And that brings me to my second point, which is the champions. More of the champions, or maybe more champions. I really like having notable side characters, ones you can get amiibo for, ones that you can get a poster of, ones that you can play more with in the DLC. And that's what Champions Ballad was, and that's what these great characters ended up being for the first game. Now, I think it would be cool if they did include some new champions or some new figures of the same stature. Perhaps they'll go the route of making guys like Prince Sidon the new champion instead of Mipha. They have sort of those like associated characters with each of the champions, and that's a route I could see them actually plausibly going. Elevating those characters to role of champion or to a similar position would be a probable path for the storyline. Yet with the rumors of like time travel and all sorts of interesting things happen, I would love to see some new characters. Perhaps even deviate from the races that the champions were from in Breath of the Wild 1 and deliver us some totally new characters from totally new races. I think that would be really fun. Especially since Link ain't speaking, it's really important to have strong secondary and tertiary characters to help this story really become emotional and help us be invested in it. Obviously you have Zelda, and we'll get to her in a minute, and you have the villain, which we mentioned in number 1, but I think champions or characters of the sort are almost just as important, and because they can bestow Link with new powers and new kind of reflections on the world, maybe in some cases they even matter more than the villain, him or herself. Let's get the obvious big one out the way now, which is dungeons. I really want Link to dive back into some traditional dungeons. Nintendo makes phenomenal puzzle boxes. It's their version of an escape room, and I want to see those not escape this game. All right, we love Breath of the Wild 1 for its expansiveness, for its divine beast, for its shrines, but it would be great to have a mixture of dogs barking and, of course, of Breath of the Wild plus the traditional Zelda bringing back those big dungeons. Now, how you work items with this, I'm not so sure, right? One of the main rewards of a big dungeon in the previous Zelda games was that you get a really nifty item that was locked to that dungeon. Now, Breath of the Wild is much more kind of non-linear. You can kind of go as you please and acquire what you will. I think there's a way to make it work. Nintendo experimented with a Link Between Worlds of kind of mixing up the order of items, and it wasn't perfect in that game, but I thought it was a nifty twist on the traditional formula. Maybe Aonuma and Co. can come up with some sort of hybrid formula that allows you to still get super cool weapons from dungeons, but maybe still allow you to tackle them in different orders, or at least a number of different orders, so everyone isn't just following the same through line. I think what's made Elden Ring such a big point of conversation, besides its pedigree, is that everybody's playing through a different order of progression. Like some are going to the castle first, and some are going towards one of the catacombs. Some are facing off against this boss, and some save that boss for 20 hours in. Any way that you can make Breath of the Wild 2 more in that style, I think will really just cultivate such a community around this game. I mean, there already will be one, but you know, it's so much more fun when the world seems so expansive that everybody is telling different stories all at the same time. That just feels incredibly immersive. And so I do hope that we bring back dungeons with a hybrid item formula and fully realize this union of different styles of Zelda all in one game. Now, speaking of items and weapons, the next one on my list is what do you do with weapon breakage? I know that people fall on both sides of this dilemma. Do you want the weapons to not break and then you kind of are stuck with your favorite, or do you want the weapons to break so you're forced to kind of explore, go around, try new things, and have more of a explorative nature to your weapon arsenal? I think there are pluses and minuses to both, but at the end of the day, the weapon degradation was a bit frustrating in Breath of the Wild. And so I'm gonna fall on the side of no more weapons breaking. Now maybe this falls in line with including dungeons, and so they are able to manufacture a system that doesn't need weapon breakage to stay interesting. I don't know. I didn't find it to be a benefit for me. You may feel otherwise, but I bet there's a good chunk of you that would be really glad to see weapons breaking just a thing of the past. And speaking of the past, the old abilities. Man, the Sheikah Slate, very cool. The iconography there has become legendary, and we did like our stasis and our magnesis and our remote bombs, but I would love to see Breath of the Wild 2 just say, see ya, those old abilities. I want new abilities, and I want them all to be replacing the old abilities so that it mixes up the way you can incorporate them into combat and puzzles and feels fresh. We've already seen one new ability in the big trailer where Link is able to freeze an object in time and then rewind it back through its time cycle. Useful, but I'm totally down for just leaving those powers in the past game and allowing us to create something new. I think the more ways that Breath of the Wild 1 and 2 can have distinguishing features, the better. Like look, they are sequels and I know that they will share a very similar structure and architecture, but I think if you can separate these games so that one does feel dramatically separate, that will be for the best. I'm not saying you have to go Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask and make them completely different, but I'd hate to see Link feel just like Link except with more flowing hair. And in that same vein, I imagine they are going to utilize a similar map for Hyrule, and that's why I really hope that the sky areas that have been teased in the trailers are expansive. I hope that the new portions of the map, whether they are in the air or on the ground, are exciting and encourage new types of exploration. There is a certain satisfaction to knowing a place, so I'm not opposed to them utilizing some or even a majority of the map from the original Breath of the Wild. And one of the main theories we hear teased and tossed around is that it'll be the same map but in a different place and time, so things are different, or the structure of things has changed a bit so you know the layout but you don't know exactly what's housed there. And I think that sounds okay, but I still really want there to be notable new areas. Now, dungeons could definitely do that, but I even mean in the explorative outdoor sections, I want the environments to be new and fresh and fun. There was such an awesome moment when you got to reach a huge mountain and look out in the distance and see what's over there, right? You got, oh my gosh, this huge volcanic mountain. Oh my gosh, this big old lake. And I want to have that same sense of discovery in Breath of the Wild 2. It will be absolutely muted and diluted if it is the exact same, and if the extra areas are small. If we just have a few floating islands, that's not gonna cut it, and I really hope that Nintendo has used all these years of development to distinguish a new map, or at least a new half map to put on top of the original from Breath of the Wild 1. We're getting deeper into our discussion, so let's get deeper on my wish list. I would love to see them incorporate playable Zelda in some fashion. I think the big dream is like true co-op, but I don't see Nintendo going that route. So I would love to see a world where you get to play as Link and as Zelda, perhaps to support each other, or at least to solve different sorts of puzzles and problems with their own moveset. We do see Zelda falling away from Link, and they love to split these characters up, so let's take advantage of that and let us be Zelda. She is bold, she is brave, she is absolutely awesome, and it's time that she gets some shine. I really think it would be great if we were able to have multiple characters that are playable, and I think that would elevate not only the gameplay, but the discourse. I mean, how do you go and be better than the best Zelda ever? Well, you do something really ballsy. You let the players play as the titular character, Zelda herself, and that's gonna get everyone talking. Like, just picture this, okay? You're playing Breath of the Wild 2, everything's going hunky-dory, you're getting some new items, you're shooting your bow, you're fighting off some traditional enemies, and then all of a sudden, there's a cutscene, and you flip perspective. All of a sudden you're playing as Zelda. That moment you'll be texting your friends, posting on Twitter like, oh my gosh, redacted, spoiler, holy crap, blow my mind. And I love those moments. Mind-blowing moments happen in Breath of the Wild because of the new structure and the new world. And again, I'm really big, as you can tell, on having those moments again. And I think the best one you can give us is Playable Zelda. We previously discussed this interesting leak where Zelda was using the Sheikah Slate to utilize the abilities from Breath of the Wild 1, whereas Link was using his arm and new abilities specifically tailored to Breath of the Wild 2. That is a perfect scenario to me. Zelda gets the old abilities for familiarity, but a new fun character, and Link gets new abilities, so the main portion of your adventure feels perfectly fresh. I will say this, I think it will be a criminal missed opportunity if there is not even one small section where you can play as Zelda. And I'm not saying like, oh gosh, she's weak and crouching and crawling and hiding. No, let's empower this awesome character and let her maybe even save Link from time to time, or solve something super important to the storyline, or defeat the final boss. I'm down for all of that. I just know that like, I need Zelda to take a much more frontline and front-facing role in this sequel. I also really want to see a twist on shrines. Shrines are intrinsically tied to Breath of the Wild, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of brilliant shrines, a lot of fun different puzzles, and man, too few games tackle puzzles these days. Like for all the open world awesomeness of Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring and even Dying Light 2, there's just not much in the way of puzzle solving. It's an area that Zelda absolutely overtakes all of its competitors. And so the shrines are super cool. Don't erase them, but twist them? I don't know that I just want to see 100 more shrines. Find a way to utilize new abilities or even a new methodology to make shrines, or whatever they're called here, interesting again. Like, yeah, you can just do the route of more creative puzzles, but if they're able to just add some element, some twist to really take a new look at what a puzzle means, that would be perfect. Now, I'm no game design expert, so I don't necessarily have the solution, and maybe dungeons can fill that role of finding a new way to incorporate puzzling elements into the main gameplay of this game. But I would really like to see a twist on shrines, wouldn't you? Or would you be okay with just like, hey, 75 more shrines, same type of stuff, but now using some different abilities and maybe a slightly different reward? Let me know where you fall on this in the comments down below. And we've made it to my final wish, and this is maybe the most important one. Put the game out this year. Put Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 out in 2022, please, Nintendo. I mean, we have such incredible games releasing as exclusives and awesome multi-platform opportunities for every other console. Horizon Forbidden West, Starfield's coming, Elden Ring, and there's even more throughout the year. Nintendo, they're having a great year, but they need Breath of the Wild 2. Let us Nintendo fans feel the glory of a phenomenal game. This is the one, and to think it could be even better than the original is just an incredible thought. So let's bask in that thought for a little longer. Hopefully we get new official information soon, probably at the next Direct, or maybe Nintendo pops off a Zelda specific Direct. You know I'll have you covered, and definitely let me know in the comments down below, what are your big wishes for Breath of the Wild 2? We went over a bunch here, like dungeons, playable Zelda, new abilities, different villain, more champions, so feel free to take any of mine and expand upon them, or pick your own. Hit that like button if you're excited for the game. And once again, my wonderful friends, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. And until next time, SwitchForce out.